You wake up. The sun's shining, your alarm went off as usual, and yet, for some reason, today feels different. It's not a bad day. There's nothing specifically wrong, but everything, absolutely everything, feels off. You go through the motions, getting out of bed, having breakfast, scrolling through your phone, but there's no spark, no excitement, no connection to anything you're doing. It's as if you've stepped into a version of your own life where the colors have faded, the sounds have muted, and the vibrancy of everything you once loved has disappeared. You find yourself questioning the simplest things. Why doesn't this excite me anymore? Why does it feel like I'm just going through the motions? You've been there before, right? That feeling of wondering why something that once brought you joy suddenly doesn't anymore. Maybe it's your favorite video game, the hobby you used to lose hours in, or spending time with friends. Nothing seems to hold your attention for long, and you're left asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Why does nothing feel fun anymore? This sense of disconnection isn't just frustrating, it's isolating. The activities that once gave you joy now feel like chores. You see others enjoying life, and the gap between them and you feels like an unbridgeable chasm. How can everyone else seem so full of energy, excitement, and passion while you're stuck in a fog, unable to tap into any of it? What's happening here isn't just an occasional off day or a small slump. It's a deeper emotional state that many people experience, yet it remains largely misunderstood. You might think, I'm just tired, or I'm just going through a tough time. But what if it's more than that? What if it's a symptom of something deeper, something that affects not just your mood, but the very way you experience life itself? This feeling of life being lifeless is known as anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure in things that once brought you happiness. It's more than just a momentary lack of excitement. It's an overwhelming numbness, a state where your passions and interests seem to have vanished, leaving you floating in a sea of gray. The things that once filled your heart with joy no longer make you feel anything, and you find yourself wondering, is this it? But here's the thing. You're not alone in feeling this way. So many people go through life feeling stuck in a place where their interests, their joy, their sense of wonder all seem to evaporate. And though it can be an incredibly disorienting experience, it's important to understand that it's not a permanent state. This feeling, as heavy as it may seem, is something you can work through. The key is understanding why it happens. Why does life suddenly feel like it's been stripped of its vibrancy? And what's behind that sense of detachment that makes everything seem dull and unimportant? In the next section, we'll explore the hidden forces behind this lifelessness. We'll take a look at the science, the emotions, and the external pressures that might be playing a role in disconnecting you from the joy you once knew. Because often, the answers aren't as simple as just snap out of it. But first, ask yourself, what has changed? Can you pinpoint when life began to feel less colorful? Can you remember the moment when things started to slip away, when you started questioning whether you'd ever feel alive again? This opening is designed to draw the viewer in with a relatable and emotional question, making them feel understood, right from the start. It sets the tone for the deeper exploration of why life can sometimes feel lifeless, making them want to continue watching. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. You're probably wondering, why does this happen? Why does life suddenly feel so flat, like the energy's been drained right out of it? It's easy to assume that it's all in your head or that it's just a temporary mood, but there's much more going on beneath the surface. To truly understand why you're feeling this way, we need to dive deeper into the science behind it. At the core of this experience is something that's happening inside your brain. When we think about pleasure or joy, we often focus on the feelings themselves, but those feelings are the result of complex processes taking place in our nervous system. Specifically, neurotransmitters, the chemicals that send signals between nerve cells, are responsible for how we experience the world around us. Dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin are the main players in this process. When you do something that excites you, makes you happy, or connects you with others, these chemicals flood your brain, creating a sense of pleasure and fulfillment. This is how you feel the rush of excitement when you accomplish something or the warmth when you spend time with friends or family. But what happens when these neurotransmitters stop working the way they're supposed to? It's like trying to watch a movie without sound or color. The experience becomes flat, disconnected, and hard to engage with. One of the main reasons life starts to feel lifeless is because your brain's reward system stops functioning optimally. In simpler terms, you're not getting that same burst of joy from things that once brought you pleasure. This isn't a matter of you losing interest or just needing a change of pace. It's a shift in your brain chemistry. When dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and pleasure, isn't firing the way it should, even your favorite activities can seem like a distant memory. This change in your brain's chemistry can happen for a variety of reasons. Let's break them down. Chronic stress and anxiety. Stress is one of the most significant disruptors of brain chemistry. When we're constantly in fight or flight mode, our bodies release cortisol, the stress hormone. High levels of cortisol for prolonged periods can decrease dopamine production, making it harder for you to feel motivated or excited about anything. Stress also affects serotonin, the feel-good chemical, leaving you feeling down and disconnected. Depression. This is one of the most well-known reasons behind a lack of joy. When depression sets in, the brain's ability to produce and regulate neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin diminishes, leading to a state of emotional numbness. It's not just about feeling sad. It's about not being able to feel anything at all. Burnout. In today's fast-paced world, burnout has become an epidemic. Long work hours, constant pressure, and a lack of self-care can all contribute to burnout. When you're emotionally exhausted, your brain just doesn't have the resources to feel joy. The constant stress and lack of recovery time leave you feeling depleted, and it becomes harder to find meaning or pleasure in anything. Lifestyle factors. Sleep, diet, and exercise play a huge role in maintaining healthy brain function. Lack of sleep or poor quality sleep disrupts your brain's ability to recharge and reset, leaving you tired and emotionally flat. A poor diet or a lack of physical activity can also throw off your brain chemistry, making it more difficult to feel engaged with life. But here's the good news. Once you understand the root causes, you can start to address them. Recognizing that there's a biological and psychological foundation to your feelings is the first step toward regaining balance. Your brain isn't broken, it's just out of sync. The key is giving it what it needs to heal. In the next section, we'll explore how this disconnection can lead to a cycle that seems impossible to break. You may be stuck in a loop of disengagement, where every attempt to reconnect feels overwhelming. But don't worry. We'll break that cycle down and talk about the small changes that can help you take back control. This section dives into the science and psychological aspects of why life can feel lifeless, connecting the viewer's personal experience to the underlying biological processes. It's designed to help them understand that the loss of joy is not just a mood swing, but something rooted in brain chemistry and external factors. Let me know if you want to expand or adjust. Anything! You've probably noticed that when life feels lifeless, it's not just the lack of joy that's the problem. There's something else going on. Motivation starts to slip away too. Every time you try to engage with life again, it feels like the energy just isn't there. Even the smallest effort feels overwhelming. It's as if you're standing still, and no matter how hard you try to take a step forward, you feel stuck in the same place. Why does it feel like no matter how much you want to change things, you just can't? This is the point where many people fall into what feels like an endless loop. A cycle where the more you disengage, the harder it becomes to re-engage. You might find yourself in a place where even the thought of doing something you once enjoyed feels like a mountain to climb. Why? Because motivation doesn't just come from nowhere, it's built on momentum, And when that momentum is lost, it feels like you're starting from square one every time. The truth is, it's not just about feeling unmotivated. It's that your brain has been trained to expect nothing from the things that used to excite you. When you try to take action, your brain often hits the brakes. The fear of failure, fear of disappointment, or even the simple idea that nothing will change stops you from moving forward. But why does this cycle feel so hard to break? It all comes down to how the brain operates. When you stop doing things that bring you joy, your brain essentially stops rewarding you with the feel-good chemicals that drive motivation. Over time, this makes the idea of taking action feel less and less rewarding. The longer you stay out of action, the harder it becomes to break free from the inertia. It's a bit like walking through thick mud. Each step feels more difficult than the last. For example, think about trying to exercise when you haven't in a while. Your mind tells you that you should, but as soon as you think about getting up, your body resists. You might start making excuses like, "I'm too tired," "I don't have the time," or "it won't make a difference anyway." That resistance you feel is your brain's way of conserving energy, a result of being out of practice with positive habits. It's easier to stay where you are than to push forward, and as a result, the motivation to do anything starts to disappear. And it's not just the small things that get harder. This cycle begins to affect your overall sense of purpose. If nothing brings you joy anymore, you might start to question what's even worth doing. If your work, your passions, or your relationships feel drained of meaning, the thought of pursuing anything at all can become paralyzing. The longer you stay in that state, the deeper the cycle of lost motivation becomes. But here's the thing. The more you avoid taking action, the more entrenched the cycle becomes. The longer you stay inactive, the more difficult it feels to make any meaningful change. The key to breaking this cycle is simple, yet difficult. You have to act, even when it feels impossible. It's about small, incremental steps, breaking the cycle, one tiny action at a time. It's like pushing a boulder that's been sitting in place for years. It doesn't move at first, and it feels like you're not getting anywhere. But eventually, with patience and persistence, you'll begin to see progress. Once you break the inertia, even just a little, you'll start to rebuild momentum. And with momentum comes motivation. In the next section, we'll talk about how to reignite that spark even if it feels like there's nothing left. We'll explore small, actionable steps that can begin to bring you back to life, piece by piece. And most importantly, we'll show you how to push through the hardest part, getting started. This section addresses the difficulty of breaking the cycle of disengagement and lost motivation, explaining the psychological and physiological aspects that make it so challenging. It emphasizes the importance of taking small steps to rebuild momentum and encourages the viewer to push through the resistance they may be feeling. Let me know how you'd like to proceed with the next section. It's one thing to realize that you've lost touch with life's vibrancy. It's another thing entirely to understand that you have the power to reclaim it. The road back to feeling connected to the world, to rediscovering joy and excitement in the everyday may seem distant right now, but it's much closer than you think. Reigniting that spark inside you is a process, and like any journey, it begins with a single, often small, step. And that step is the most crucial part. The first thing you need to remember is, you are not broken. The feeling of lifelessness that you're experiencing doesn't mean that you're incapable of finding joy again. It simply means that something inside you has gone a little out of balance, but balance can be restored. The journey is not about forcing excitement back into your life. It's about reconnecting with what you once found meaningful. It's about waking up your mind, body, and spirit to the beauty of the world around you. The power of self-compassion. The very first step to regaining joy is self-compassion. It's easy to fall into a spiral of self-criticism when you're feeling numb or disconnected. You might think, Why can't I just enjoy this? Why can't I pull myself together? It's essential to recognize that this feeling is not your fault. You didn't choose to feel lifeless. Often, the underlying causes, be they stress, anxiety, depression, or even burnout, are beyond your control. Being kind to yourself is the first step toward healing. Acknowledge that you're in a tough place and allow yourself the grace to feel that way without judgment. You don't need to force yourself to be happy, and you certainly don't need to pressure yourself to feel the way you did before. Healing is a journey, and sometimes it's about allowing yourself the time and space to be where you are, while also committing to move forward, even if it's at a slow pace. Start small. The power of tiny wins. Once you've allowed yourself the space to feel, it's time to take action, but not in a big, overwhelming way. It's not about trying to fix yourself immediately. The key to rediscovering joy is to start small. If you've lost touch with activities that once made you happy, trying to dive right back in can feel daunting. Instead of expecting yourself to pick up where you left off, begin with small, manageable steps. For example, if you loved painting but haven't picked up a brush in months, don't expect yourself to complete a full piece of art right away. Instead, start by picking up the paintbrush again. It could be something as simple as a few strokes on a blank page or playing with colors just for the sake of it, without worrying about the result. The goal isn't perfection, it's reconnection. If you once loved reading but find it hard to focus now, don't pressure yourself to read an entire novel. Pick up a short story, an article, or even a poem. Start small and let yourself enjoy the act of reading again without the pressure of finishing something. This isn't about achieving anything big. It's about reigniting that tiny spark of enjoyment that will eventually grow. Every small step, every tiny action that you take to reconnect with something you love, no matter how insignificant it may seem, is a victory. With each step, you're reminding your brain that pleasure exists. And the more you take these small steps, the more the spark begins to grow. Routine and structure. Building momentum. Another key element in reigniting joy is routine. When you're stuck in a state of lifelessness, it's easy to feel like every day blends into the next. The days begin to feel repetitive, like you're stuck in a loop of monotony. But establishing a simple routine can be an antidote to that. Routine provides a sense of structure and rhythm to your day, and when it's done right, it can create momentum. Even small acts, when done consistently, can spark positive changes. Begin by incorporating small habits into your routine. Maybe it's a morning ritual, like taking a few moments to stretch and breathe, or enjoying a cup of tea while you sit in silence. These simple moments of mindfulness can anchor your day. If exercise is something you once enjoyed but have fallen out of, make it part of your routine in small increments. Start with a 10-minute walk around the block and work your way up. The goal isn't to push yourself hard, but to reintroduce activity into your day, creating a sense of accomplishment and energy. Even something as small as committing to go to bed at a consistent time each night can begin to shift your energy. Sleep is a crucial factor in how we feel, and when you're well rested, it becomes easier to tackle other aspects of life with a sense of purpose. But here's the key. Don't overwhelm yourself with trying to do everything at once. Start with 1 or 2 small routines and build from there. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Setting realistic expectations and allowing patience. As you embark on this journey to rediscover joy, it's crucial to set realistic expectations for yourself. It's important to remember that healing takes time. If you've been feeling disconnected from life for a while, it's not realistic to expect everything to return to normal overnight. But this doesn't mean you won't get there. Small, consistent actions over time can and will lead to real change. Be patient with yourself. If one day feels like a step back, that's okay. Progress isn't always linear. Some days will feel harder than others, and some days you might feel like you're right back where you started. That's a natural part of the process. But it doesn't mean you've lost your progress. It means you're human. Just keep going, even when it feels like nothing is shifting. You are worthy of taking the time to heal, and your journey will unfold in its own time. The importance of connection. Don't be afraid to reach out finally, and perhaps most importantly, don't go through this alone. Connection with others is a fundamental part of rediscovering joy. When you're in a state of lifelessness, it's easy to isolate yourself. You might feel like no one would understand, or you might be embarrassed by your lack of enthusiasm for the things you once loved. But opening up to others is often the key to breaking through that isolation. Talking to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, or a therapist, can help you process what you're going through. It can also remind you that you're not alone in your experience. Sharing your feelings can be a profound act of self-compassion, and sometimes the support of others can reignite your own spark. Connection reminds us that we are not defined by our struggles, but by how we choose to rise from them. Conclusion. The journey is not over. The path to rediscovering joy and excitement in your life may feel long right now, but remember that you are not stuck. Every small step you take, no matter how tiny, is a step toward reconnecting with the world around you. You are not alone in feeling disconnected, and you don't have to stay here forever. With patience, self-compassion, and a commitment to small, intentional actions, you can rebuild the spark that once made life feel vibrant. Take that first step today. Even if it's just a small one, it's a step forward. And with each step, you'll begin to find the colors of your life returning. Because life is meant to be lived fully, and it's waiting for you to step back in, even if it's one gentle step at a time. Call to action, CTA. Start small, be patient with yourself, and trust that the joy you're seeking is already on its way back. This expanded version provides a detailed, compassionate roadmap for the viewer to rediscover joy. It encourages action without pressure, emphasizes the importance of patience, and reinforces the idea that progress is possible. The call to action is designed to leave a lasting impression. Let me know if you'd like to refine anything further.